This is Midwest Moxie, a show about our region's visionary founders and the experiences that shape them. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher, Executive Director of Five Lakes Institute. Buddy Clark was so frustrated with the advice many youth baseball coaches were giving their players that he set out to fix it. The University of Pittsburgh engineering professor's first attempt, sensors that could measure bat motion, was promising. So promising, in fact, that it eventually convinced CJ Handron, the director of Pitt's startup incubator, to quit his job and become CEO of the new company they formed around Buddy's work. Started in 2013, Diamond Kinetics is a sports technology company that provides tools for player measurement, evaluation, and development in baseball and softball. It has 40 employees and has raised $32 million. Buddy and CJ, welcome to Midwest Moxie.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Buddy, you love watching baseball. You loved playing it in high school, and you loved coaching your three kids. But you were often frustrated by this advice you heard other coaches giving their players. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. Coaches are, especially at the youth level, they're typically parents. They're hero parents that volunteer their time, and without them, the game doesn't go. So while they're trying to do the best they can with what they have, they didn't have a lot of tools and sensors and even knowledge about human body motion and what needs to be done, especially at that time, 15 years ago. And they're trying to coach this game that's really hard. It's a high skill sport, and teaching a player to hit is just a hard thing to do. And if the kids don't have success, they could get frustrated and drift away from the game. So that was the real frustration, was seeing that happen, knowing that we could probably do better. And that's kind of what I set out to do, was to develop tools to help answer some of those questions and provide information that players and coaches didn't have at the time.
I mean, a lot of people have had those thoughts, but you actually happen to be an engineering professor, and your research area is in human body motion, particularly related to stroke recovery and lower back pain. So working on something like that made a ton of sense for you. It was your thing, right?
It was, and I've told people this before, and in fact, I told CJ at the very beginning, this is the one thing that really would draw me out to create a startup and be an entrepreneur, because I could combine these passions of my life, the engineering, the sensor development, the electronics, with my passion for baseball. So it was a perfect fit.
But still, CJ, you're running the startup incubator, and one day, no appointment, this engineering professor comes walking in, and he's carrying a laptop, and he's got a bat with a big sensor attached to it. What'd you think? What was your reaction?
I was surprised, excited, and skeptical. So as someone who absolutely loves the game of baseball, grew up playing all the way through high school, I did not expect that my professional life working with students and faculty inside the University of Pittsburgh was going to cross over with a personal passion in baseball. I was very skeptical when he started to explain to me what he had begun to build from a prototype perspective. But once I saw him take one swing in a conference room with this kind of big clunky sensor, and it actually tracked the swing, and he showed me a 3D visualization, my experience and my kind of knowledge and understanding of the game and the market, I really perked up very quickly. And in fact, remember going home that day and saying to my wife, this is something really, really interesting. So I ended up being very pleasantly surprised and very excited about what the opportunity was around the technology.
So, Buddy, what was it about? So you could track the swing, but you still had to know how to fix the swing. Why did that help fix it?
So at the time, the only sensor that really was available, and I'm using the word sensor stretching the meaning here, it was the coach's eyes, right? It was what they could see in the swing. And first of all, it's a fast motion, so it's hard to pick up all the nuances, and it's easy to be misled and it's really not see what you think you're seeing. So that was hard. And then on top of that, knowing what to do with that information was difficult. And so I'm again, as an engineer, I want to quantify things and objectively get the answer. And once we had that, then we could use some known, engineering and physics type principles to do something with that.
So you guys start working together, and within a year, CJ, you decide to leave the university. Buddy stays in his job, but works with you. You form Diamond Kinetics. In the early years, you guys knew that there were a handful of companies also working on this. How did that affect how you ran the company?
There was a right when we started the company, there was a tremendous amount of activity in small IMUs, and in particular in and around all sports, not just baseball and
What are
softball.
what are what
And
are
so
IMUs?
inertial measurement units, so
Thanks.
the accelerometers, gyroscopes, and the sensors, as we're calling them here.
Yeah.
And so we knew we had to move quickly. There's a window where, as you get a handful of companies who are all kind of attacking a similar problem in different ways, there's a window where you need to be, kind of on the inside of that versus the outside, especially in more capital intensive, businesses where you're building hardware and having to raise capital to do that. And so we definitely felt like we had to move quickly. We had to make sure we were on the inside of that as the market started to develop.
You now have 4 patents that you licensed from Pitt and University of Michigan. Buddy was working with Noel Perkins there on some of the technology, and you've got 4 or 5 more you've developed. You've grown into a company that captures data from equipment, I assume smart balls, smart bats, and
Right.
what are some of the ways that happens, that capturing data and, what do your customers get?
First of all, Noel was tremendous to work with. He's sort of the pioneer in some of this sports motion measurement with these wearable sensors. But we generate a lot of data. Obviously, every swing is thousands of data points, and we convert that into metrics that are useful. But what we learned is not so much. It's still hard for players and coaches to make use of that direct data, and so a lot of our work has been in how do we craft that in such a way that they get useful information without having to dig into the data. And it's actually been an interesting challenge. It's been a lot of fun. So it's about eliminating barriers as far as I see it is what can we do with the least amount of sensor technology? And then how can we eliminate their burden of processing that and even make it fun for players to do this sort of stuff and learn.
There's a transition, I think, that is happening now and I would put this in all of sort of sports data or sports technology, which is, use a baseball analogy here. If the early innings of the development of the industry and market was, can you quantify? How do you actually measure? I think that Diamond Kinetics and a number of other companies have been successful in proving that capability exists, which didn't when we started this. You could not actually quantify how fast somebody swung a bat. The evolution now in the transition is into the application of data. So there's incredible volumes of information. It's very accessible now to, our user base starts at 7 or 8 years old, so it's available to everybody. Now it's a question of how do you apply that for different types of users. There's a very different need for a professional athlete who works with a team of coaches and specialists versus a younger player who's, either figuring it out on their own or with their parents or with a volunteer coach. And so I think that's the interesting, kind of evolution that's happening right now.
Your biggest customer base is with kids under age 13, but you go all the way up to MLB teams. You've got on your website some free stuff that people can take advantage of. And then when they put the sensor on the bat, they start paying. It's not that expensive, though, right? That's one of your value propositions. What do they pay?
There's an entry point for under $100, and yeah, there is we try to make sure that there is a lot of free experiences, free content that's good for the game. It's good to create some exposure to what our platform can provide. And one of the theses that we had when Buddy and I started this company was one of the most compelling reasons to develop this was, in fact, the ability to make it broadly available. Mobile phone availability, device availability, plus a very affordable measurement device was really exciting for us. At the highest levels of the games, there are technologies that track and measure that are tens into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that can make sense for high-end organizations, professional organizations, but that's never going to reach, my kids in the backyard or my neighbor's kids. And so that has been a driving vision for us. It's a big piece of our partnership with Major League Baseball as the trusted youth development platform for MLB is wide availability, whether it is sensor-based experiences or free camera, computer vision, or content-based experiences.
Why does MLB care about, a 12-year-old playing baseball who's never probably going to play in college, maybe even high school?
There is a very clear direct correlation between playing baseball or softball and being a lifelong fan of baseball and softball, and then actually passing that fandom and interest in the game down to the next generation. So if you zoom back out in your Major League Baseball and one of your goals is to create fans, and that participating in the game in whatever form, playing wiffle ball is playing baseball and participating in the game. Major League Baseball wants to promote play and participation. And so if you get better at something, you're more likely to continue to want to play it. And that's a piece of the puzzle that we fit for them.
What kind of potential does Diamond Kinetics have? How big can you get this company?
There's upwards of 16 million kids in the US that play baseball and softball. And so when you think about that, that's a big market. There are billions of dollars that are being spent in and around youth sports, baseball and softball. And we're trying to be a positive contributor to that. There are some challenges with the cost to play and participate. One of our goals is that, in an efficient way, being able to bring instructional experiences and content is a positive contributor. We're broadening our platform. We acquired a live streaming and highlight platform just a couple of months ago called Sideline HD. Again, very focused on how do we bring a great experience to youth, families, and households. There's a significant market and a significant opportunity for us to pursue.
I can see just from talking with you guys, the company has a lot of partnerships, but you have a great partnership between the two of you. And it's sure going to be fun to watch that move forward. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thanks again.
Thanks very much for having us.
You can read more about today's guest by visiting WUWM.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the show as a podcast if you'd like to take us on the go. Just search for Midwest Moxie wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher. Midwest Moxie was created by executive producer Audrey Nowakowski and me. Today's episode was produced by Audrey Nowakowski and engineered by WUWM's Jason Reevy. Join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. to hear from more visionary Midwestern founders building innovative companies. That's right here on 89.7, Milwaukee's NPR. Support for Midwest Moxie comes from Microsoft, whose efforts to drive technology development across the Midwest and beyond include its National TechSpark community engagement work, which started in Wisconsin, its role as co-founder of Titletown Tech in Green Bay, and its new AI co-innovation lab at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. More information is available at Microsoft.com. And from Quarles and Brady LLP, a multidisciplinary Am Law 200 firm with approximately 550 attorneys who support large and small businesses, from Fortune 500 companies to startups and entrepreneurs across the country. More at Quarles.com.